You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. Today we're discussing the final episode of the Fifth Doctor's run on Doctor Who, The Caves of Androzani. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today is Jimmy Aiken. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to get your very own Secrets of Doctor Who t-shirt or phone case or more by visiting sqpn.com/merch. And we do have more of your great listener feedback. This time we're going to get feedback on our recent discussion of the Big Finish story that with the 10th Doctor and River Song. Yeah, thanks. I almost said Missy. The 10th Doctor and River Song called Ghosts. So we get some great feedback on that.
There is some 10th Doctor and Missy stuff.
Yes, I know. That's why it confused me for a second. My brain glitched. But in the meantime, Jimmy, why don't you give us a recap of the Caves of Androzani?
This week, the Fifth Doctor and Peri land on Androzani Minor, which is the sister planet, or moon, as we call it, of Androzani Major. There, they get caught up in a local conflict between bondage enthusiast Sharaz Jek and his android rebels, gunrunners who are supplying Sharaz Jek, and a military expedition from Androzani Major. The conflict is over a kind of unobtainium called Spectrox, which dramatically extends the human lifespan. And it turns out that both the gunrunners and the military expedition are unknowingly working for the same rich, corrupt man on Androzani Major, whose name is Morgus. All of this serves as a distraction for the Doctor and Peri, though. They've been exposed to raw Spectrox and are dying of Spectrox poisoning. The only cure is milk from a queen bat, and the Doctor is desperate to get it. As the rest of the cast is engaged in a furious battle and killing each other off with great abandon, the Doctor gets the bat's milk he needs to cure him and Peri. But as he's getting Peri back to the TARDIS, he spills some, and he gives the remaining milk to Peri to save her, meaning he will also die. And only two people from this story survive, Peri and a woman from Androzani Major. So just for once, almost everybody dies, and all of the male cast members die. But even though the Doctor doubts whether he'll regenerate, he does, and at the end, up pops the Sixth Doctor. The end.
Literally, everybody dies in this one. It is a bloodbath in this episode. It is wild. Even the alien queen bat has died in this one. So if folks are wondering, for longtime listeners, have you not discussed this before? We are revisiting the regeneration episodes as they come up. And so we first discussed the Caves of Androzani in episode 49, all the way back in 2017. Yeah. So as we record this, we're 8 years later, we're going to talk about it again. Yeah.
At the time, Dom was new to Doctor Who. And so we did the regeneration stories when he didn't really know the Doctors yet. And so I thought it would be good for us to revisit them now that he's seen the whole series and have a better sense of who these characters are as individuals.
Yeah, it certainly lands differently now that I've watched the whole run of the Fifth Doctor, for instance. So Jimmy, once again, your overall impression of the Caves of Androzani?
I really like this one. It's often considered the best of Peter Davison's run, and even one of the best or the best stories of classic Who. It's written by Robert Holmes, who is widely considered the best writer of classic Doctor Who. And it really hits the ground running. It is bleak. It is driving. It is fearful. It's really the kind of stuff that Holmes liked to do. I think it's just really good. Historically, I've had a problem with it because of Sharaz Jek, who is this character in he's wearing a leather mask, and the leather mask is painted in this weird way. And apparently I've read that it's based on how Zulu warriors painted themselves. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've seen that said. But what it's always looked like to me is some kind of bondage gear. And that's something I'm not interested in seeing. This time I did some reading, and yeah, there was some acknowledgement that Sharaz Jek's mask is meant to evoke bondage gear, and it's kind of a counterpoint to the man he hates on Androzani Major, Morgus, who's playing these dominance games with people, not sexual dominance, but social dominance. And so historically, Sharaz Jek, his appearance has always put me off. Yeah. But this time, for some reason, I didn't notice him as much. I was appreciating other aspects of the story, and Sharaz Jek seemed to fade into the background more. And so I think my opinion of this story went up a bit now that he wasn't such a distraction. It's like, why did they have to do that?
Yeah. To me, there's a lot of overtones of the Phantom of the Opera in him and his portrayal, from the mask to his obsession with the girl and all that sort of stuff. So, and, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, literally in the Phantom of the Opera. So, there was a lot of that. One of the things that puts me off on this one, there's a lot of good. There's so much going on. It's so many levels, so many layers, and the typical Robert Holmes commentary on our contemporary society and politics and economics and that sort of thing. But the thing that really puts me off is Perry. She's literally the girl in peril. She has no agency and whines the whole time. And just like,
and her dicey American accent is no help. I mean, as soon as they get out of the TARDIS, they're on this desert planet. They find some fused silicon, glass in the sand, and she says, which the doctor explains as it's been fused by a rocket landing here, and Perry says maybe someone wanted some sand to make some glass. Yes. And it's like, okay, yeah, definitely not American. On the other hand, the doctor has some speech flaws too. At one point, they run across a paradise where the gun runners have been holed up, and the gun runners have gone, but they find these dice there, and the doctor picks one of them up and feels it and says, "This dice is still warm." And it's like, no, it should be this die is still warm. Robert Holmes obviously was not a gamer. But we do get lots of, Robert Holmes likes to use impressive words that are uncommon. And so he notes after Perry has been exposed to the Spectrox and gets it on her legs, she's developing a rash, and the doctor says to one of the human military people, clearly she's suffering from urticaria. And okay, that's hives.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. and then later, and Robert Holmes really loves to use impressive words in insults. And so he has Sharaz Jek referring to Morgus as fessinine, which means vulgar, obscene, or scurrilous. And he also refers to Morgus as stinking awful, awful being organ meat.
Right. OFFAL, awful. Yeah. So a couple of interesting things about this story. This is Androzani comes up later on in the Christmas special in the 11th Doctor's time, the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, where Androzani soldiers and Androzani trees play a role in that. That was interesting. That none of that plays a role in this story, really. The soldiers do, I guess. But this is the first time the Doctor undergoes regeneration to save a companion.
Yeah. This is similar to the way the 10th Doctor saves Wilf. He sacrifices himself to save Wilf in his regeneration, and the Doctor here sacrifices himself to save Perry.
I'm glad he saved Wilf. Perry does much.
But frankly, the 5th Doctor here does it better, because the 10th Doctor goes to his fate whining. And here the 5th Doctor doesn't do that. They have this big volcanic explosion going off, and he drops the milk, and he just doesn't have enough, so he just gives it to Perry. And he doesn't whine. He's just, I'm going to save this girl. And by the way, there's also, I wanted to mention, so this planet does not have magma in its core. The way it doesn't have rock magma. They call it magma sometimes, but it's actually mud. And so these are mud volcanoes. And I actually have experience with mud volcanoes because out so right next to, in Southern California, right next to San Diego County, which has San Diego in it, a major city, there's Imperial County, which is very desert. It's very rural. It's below sea level. So you're driving along and you'll see water towers, and way up high on the water tower, it's got a line for sea level. And there's also a geothermal pocket under Imperial County, and that causes some interesting effects. One of the interesting effects, not the only one, but one of them, is they have mud volcanoes there. And I've been out to them. The ground, even though they're mud volcanoes, the ground looks like it's covered with snow because there's like salts in the water that crystallize and makes it look like snow. And you step in the mud and you leave these deep, boot prints, and the boot prints are brown because they go down into the mud, but the surface still looks like snow. And they have this, fluid that's trickling. It's not hot, but carbon dioxide from the geothermal vent causes this muddy fluid to perkle up and make these mud volcanoes. And so I actually have some experience being around mud volcanoes, which is pretty cool. They're also not big. They're like 10 foot tall at most or something. But
do they explode?
Not while I was there. I don't know if they ever explode. They do sometimes have more activity and will like bubble over and stuff. There are also mud pots there, and actually now that I think about it, there can be significant sudden shifts in the activity. Like there's one main highway going through the desert here, and a few years ago, a mud pit just suddenly opened up in the highway.
Oh gosh.
But it's cool. It's really interesting out there. Also, the doctor points out as soon as they get to the planet that the caves they're seeing aren't really caves. They're blowholes for the mud. And I guess Caves of Androzani sounded better than mud blowholes of Androzani.
Yeah, marketing said no to the blowholes of Androzani.
Yeah. Also, this is set in the Sirius system, which is interesting. It's a real star. Star. Yeah. It's a real star system. It's at least a double star, though you can't see that with the naked eye from Earth. And it's only 8.5 light years away. So this would have been one of the first human colonies. And we do know it's a human colony because when they ask Doctor if he's from Androzani Major and he says no, they say, "Are you from Earth?" And he says no. So this is like a human colony, but it's got to be one of the first human colonies because of how close it is to Earth.
And what they say is when in part of Androzani Minor's orbit around the major, there's when it gets close, it causes these eruptions.
It's a moon with an elliptical orbit. Yeah.
Right. Which, I do think it was funny. They used a stock footage of Arizona's Monument Valley for part of the.
Yes, I noticed. Yeah. Oh, that's Monument Valley right there. I've been there.
Yeah. It's quite funny. Another interesting fact about this one, in regeneration lore of the Doctor, it's the first time since the first Doctor's regeneration that the Doctor regenerates before the end of the current season, we would say, or series that the Brits would say. And the first since the 10th planet where he regenerates inside the TARDIS, which is, I think, is an interesting difference.
And for once, he didn't blow the TARDIS up. Yeah.
Right. That's a modern thing.
Yeah. Also, he not only regenerates before the end of the series, so there's a whole other story left in this series. So we have the first Colin Baker story before the series ends. And whereas Caves of Androzani is one of the consistently highest rated, sometimes the highest rated in Classic Who, the first Colin Baker story that follows it, The Twin Dilemma, is the worst rated, sometimes the worst rated series in Classic Who.
It deserves it.
Big step down.
That was a pretty terrible story. We're not revisiting that one. Put my foot down on that one.
There's also an interesting thing we have towards the beginning of this, which is so Peter Docter is known, as the Master said it in One Big Finish production, dressing like nobody in the history of cricket ever. But he also has a celery stick on his lapel. And there was originally no explanation for that, but Peter Davison said, if I'm going to wear this celery, I want to know why before the end. And so they have a little throwaway bit towards the beginning where Perry asks him the question, why do you wear the celery? Which is a logical question for a new companion. And he says that he's allergic to certain gases, and the celery will, if he's ever exposed to those gases, it's his canary in a coal mine. The celery will turn a funny color, and then he'll eat the celery to save him from the gas allergy. And then they kind of bring it up later after Perry is passed out from Spectrox poisoning. The doctor waves the celery under her nose, and she starts to revive. And one of the people is asking him what he's doing, and he says, well, celery is a powerful restorative where I come from. But apparently the human sense of smell isn't as sensitive.
I thought I'd heard at some point that the celery was some type of nod to Welsh ancestry or something like that, but I may be misremembering that. But yeah, this is as good as explanations any.
Well, as the 10th Doctor put it in Time Crash, where the two of them met, not everyone can pull off a decorative vegetable.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, we mentioned this is Perry's second adventure with the Doctor. She showed up last time with when Turlough left, and so this is only her second outing with him. So then it goes very poorly. I'm surprised she doesn't demand to be let off back home after that.
Yeah, so this is one of 3 stories in a row where somebody big leaves. We had Tegan leave.
Yep.
Then we had Turlough leave and Perry enter, and here the Doctor himself leaves.
Right. So what we have this complex political situation on this. So as you mentioned, Androzani Minor there's a mines on it for this Spectrox that is a highly valuable substance,
the most valuable substance in the universe,
of course, as there always is. And so we have this figure of Morgus who's pulling the strings behind the scenes, where he's engineered this rebellion involving Jek, and also has these government forces.
Jek has gone rogue. He originally betrayed Jek, which led to Jek getting caught in a mud explosion that he had to take shelter from the mud in some kind of thermal chamber that burned him hideously. And that's why he wears the mask, is because he was disfigured. And as a result, and he was also, he's Narcissus. He's very narcissistic. He's in love with with beauty, including his previous self. So since he's Doctor Doom now and has this ruined face, he hates Morgus worse than anything. Yeah. And he's stolen all of the Spectrox supply that has been mined and is doling it out for high prices. And he says he'll dole it out completely if Androzani Major gives him the head of Morgus, who he hates passionately. While Morgus is on the other end of things, he's basically the Elon Musk of this planet. He's like the richest man, but he's also corrupt, and he's in control of both the military expedition that's fighting Morgus, and he's also in control of the gun runners who are supplying the weapons to Morgus in exchange for some of the Spectrox.
Right. He's trying to create an artificial scarcity to keep the price of the Spectrox high and to give him control. So, he doles out a little bit to the president of Androzani in order to, keep him under his control, politically. Although he eventually defenestrates.
I know. I used the same word. He pushes him down an elevator shaft.
I was going to say he Putins him.
Yeah, it's technically not defenestration since it's not a window, but that's the closest word.
Yes. He takes the last step. And then he orders the elevator maintenance tech to be executed for
as part of his cover up. Yeah, it's just have the lift maintenance engineer shot, even though you just were the person who caused the president to fall.
Right. Morgus has these weird moments, by the way, where he kind of turns and addresses the camera.
Yeah.
And is he talking to himself, or is he really breaking the fourth wall?
He's talking to the camera, but and there was some confusion in the direction to the actor, and it wasn't meant to be him so clearly breaking the fourth wall by just looking at the camera, but everyone liked the effect. They thought it made it more theatrical. You know, the way someone in a Shakespeare play just turns to the audience and starts expositing. So they kept it in the edit.
Right. There's a couple of them, but it's not consistent either. So I thought that was a bit odd. So you have this rebellion, you have the android army versus it's kind of like a little bit of the Star Wars Clone Wars. You have the android army versus the Androzani human army. And then you have this giant bat creature running around,
giant armadillo creature. Look at it carefully. It's a big cave armadillo.
It's really what it is. I had to laugh early on. At one point, like the soldier miners are, I couldn't tell what they were. They wear hard hats, so they kind of look like miners, but they're, I guess they're the soldiers.
Yeah.
And one of them gets attacked by the creature, and his fellows are in this other part of the cave, and they hear the attack. And so then they shoot their weapons in the air. I'm like, why are you shooting in the air? Like, it was very
not a
strange.
good idea in a cave, although maybe it's made out of mud instead of stone. So maybe there's less chance of a ricochet. By the way, the weapons in this are interesting. They're not blasters like we normally have in Doctor Who. They are machine guns.
Yeah.
And they're real machine guns, and they're firing real blanks. And having that actual machine gun fire with the muzzle flashes and stuff, that is part of what contributes to the gritty, realer feel of this story. And it must have been absolutely amazing to see this on family television, actual, because of how skittish they are about guns in England. To have it on actual family television, just rapid machine gun fire with all these muzzle flashes. They
actually were actual Uzis, the small handheld Uzi with like these gas canisters attached to them, because they're supposed to like gas guns. Their propulsion is by gas as opposed to, I suppose, the gunpowder.
Which is just a different chemical reaction.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. But they wanted to alienize them, sci-fi them, and they stuck the canisters on the sides to make them look less like 20th century Uzis. So the Doctor and Perry kind of blunder into the midst of all this, and they get captured by the government forces, the federal forces, they call them. And this general is, immediately assumes that they are gun runners. And then, the Doctor eventually convinces them that, no, we're not actually gun runners, but he's still going to execute him anyway. Like, it's like, yeah, too bad.
Well, he's actually, he doesn't want to do it immediately. It's Morgus who orders him to do it immediately, which is illogical and makes no sense. But they're trying to build up a cliffhanger for the end of episode 1.
I want, like, it's almost like that Morgus recognized the Doctor, because at first I thought that's what he was doing, like because he wanted to see them on screen. I guess because he wanted to see if it was his people, like Stotts, the actual gun runners, and then didn't care. So just kill them, get rid of them.
By the way, Stotts. So you have this group of gun runners who, the one that's closest who actually reports to Morgus is this guy named Stotts, and he has these others under him who are not as committed to the mission, and they're mad because they've had to wait 3 days on Androzani Minor or something when they were told this is just going to be an in and out mission, and we're going to come away with 5 kilos of Spectrox, and it's going to make us all rich, and they're having to adapt the plan, and so they're kind of malcontented. And Stotts, he is a brutal disciplinarian. He says someone, I forget who he says, but he says this other person gave me this, and he's got a pill, which is it's clearly portrayed as this is a suicide pill. Mm-hmm. And he gets his second in command, who's been one of the malcontents, on the ground under him. He forces the suicide pill into the second in command's mouth, and he's going, bite it, bite it, bite it, bite it. And he's forcing his jaws together and stuff. And it's really brutal. And then he lets him up and says, next time it'll be real. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, just the psychological torture of that moment is really incredible.
You get you learn early on that these are bad people, that and when the doctor eventually encounters him, it raises the stakes because of that.
Yeah. One of the things, Stotts eventually shoots his underlings. He just kills them.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like everybody keeps portraying, like Morgus portrays his people, Stotts portrays his people. Like, why does Stotts believe anything Morgus says? Because he's just seen him turn the tables on everybody else. Like, because by the end, I'm like, there is nothing to be gained from Morgus. He is ruined. Like, what? And that's one of the things that happens is they're like, oh, you have no power anymore. You have no money. You have no influence. You're useless now without any of those things. And that's what they kind of leave him to his fate at the hands of Jack. By the end, Jack murders Morgus at the end. But because everybody betrays everybody else in this, pretty much. So Morgus, like I said, he's engineered this war, but the politicians are planning to end the war with an amnesty, so that we can get the Spectrox, running again, and that's why Morgus, essentially why he throws the president down the well. Like, there's an actual interesting moment in this discussion between him and the president where we get a little more color into Morgus's evil. We talks about how all those people who are out of work from the factories that are shut, you should just put them in debtor prisons in the East. And the president notes that the people in the debtor prisons work in the debtor factories out there as slaves, essentially, and you own those. So essentially, you close the factories here, and then open factories there, and now you get the same workers. You just don't have to pay them anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Sure, you didn't.
Yeah. Also, the Morgus believes the president has betrayed him, and that's actually not true.
Yeah.
As we learn, it's just Morgus's paranoia that makes him think that he's being betrayed by people on his own side.
So he
kills the president for nothing.
Right. I know that in the 70s and 80s, people tended to look older, younger. Mm-hmm. But at one point, the president says, "I'm in my 80s. Can you believe it?" Saying the effects of Spectrox, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I know. And Morgus says, "I wouldn't have guessed over 50."
Yeah, and I'm like, man, you look older than I do.
Yeah,
for sure. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if it was serious or Morgus was just blowing smoke.
I think it was meant to be serious. People really did seem to physically age quicker in the past.
Yeah, man. So the first episode cliffhanger is Doctor and Perry being executed by a firing squad, but of course they were swapped out by androids at the last minute that look like androids, which Jack has managed to make very quickly, right down to the clothing and their speech patterns and everything. It's amazing, his technology. Maybe he has the same stuff that Roger Corby has in the Star Trek What a Little Girl Made Of. So that's the cliffhanger there. But Jack is creepily obsessed with Perry. It's kind of, it's hard to watch. It's so creepy. It's so cringy. I mean, especially with the 2020s sensibilities, it's very different.
Well, it's meant to be creepy, and it is. It's effective in that regard.
Yeah. The doctor, meanwhile, once they're in Jack's hands, he keeps provoking Jack. The doctor has always had this habit of saying provoking things, but Jack is unstable. Clearly, he's the Joker. Really. Yeah,
and the way that Five treats him is, I saw a quote that said Robert Holmes wrote the Fifth Doctor the same way he'd write the Fourth Doctor. He didn't really take into account the difference between Tom Baker and Peter Davison. But there's one particular moment where this comes out where the Fifth Doctor is complaining to Perry about Jek, and he says, you know, he even said that my intellect is almost a match for his. Huh, can you believe the hubris?
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, that hubris cuts both ways, dude.
Right. But in the end, you know, even though Jek's obsession is creepy, he does try to save Perry.
He does, I mean, He when he realizes the Doctor has a chance, so lower in the caves, there's not enough oxygen for a human to get to the bat, the queen bat. And the Doctor says, I'm not a human. I can do without as much oxygen as you would need. And Morgus then says, here, take this. And he gives him an oxygen canister to help him. So he is partially redeemed by that.
Yes, there is partial redemption. There's another character, Salatine, who's the general's aide, who had been replaced by an android. And you know, Salatine had been captured by Jek and was being held with him, and he helps the Doctor and Perry escape, but then betrays them on the way back and takes Perry back to the general. The Doctor gets injured and, you know, falls by the wayside, but Salatine betrays Perry. Everyone's betraying everybody throughout this thing. There is not a solid loyal person in any of this, which is kind of maybe a commentary. You know, they all die justly because of their betrayals. You know, that sort of idea. Jek is always a step ahead of the general and his troops. He's got cameras everywhere. He's being given information by Morgus early on anyway. Later on, Morgus stops, but you know, that he seems to always be half a step ahead, which gives him the ability to wipe out.
Or by Salatine, he's being given information by the robot Salatine.
That's true. And he's got cameras everywhere and that whole thing. And like I said, when it comes down to it, at the end, the Doctor is willing to. He's not sure he's going to regenerate. He says, even before then. So there's this point where the Doctor gets captured by the gunrunners, and they're going to take him back to Androzani Major, and so they get him in a spaceship, and then the Doctor, when they're out of the room, is able to get out of his restraints and take control of the spaceship and point it back to Androzani Minor. And there's a vision. He's clearly struggling in this. He's already been exposed to Spectrox. He's suffering from Spectrox toxemia. And there's this visual effect of these wavy lines separating from the center of the screen. And they later use that effect when he regenerates. But at the end of it, that's the end of episode 4. But at the end of episode 3, as he's piloting the spaceship back to Androzani Minor, there's this very dramatic moment. He's in control of the ship, and we see that wavy lines effect. And once you know what this is at the end, what this effect is used for at the end, that means he's regenerating now and he's fighting it off. Yeah.
And the gunrunners come to the door and they're yelling to be let in, and Peter Davison is like maximal acting intensity. He fights off the regeneration effect, and it's like, we're all gonna crash right now. Grab something, right? And so what I really like about it. Now I'm sure you could try to take it in some other way, like, oh, this is just a sign he's dizzy, but to me, that visual effect, the fact they use it when he's regenerating, I mean, he is, in my mind, he is regenerating right now and fighting it off in order to save Perry and the situation, and try to survive this, crash he's about to be in. And he is not believing he's got unlimited regenerations no matter what here, because afterwards, he thinks the Spectrox toxemia is going to kill him permanently. He says, I might not regenerate. I don't know. It feels different this time.
Yeah.
And so I understand that as he's already feeling all that at the end of episode 3 when the ship crashes. And then he gets out and he goes, and the big war has started, and he's running across the desert. And the gunrunners are shooting at him with machine guns, although blanks. And he rolls down. It's a really intense sequence where he falls, he rolls down one of these sand hills. He's desperate to try to get to the bat to get what he needs to save himself and Perry. And everything's going wrong, and he's fallen and rolled down this hill, and he's laying there on his back, and he just says, "Sorry, Perry, I can't make it." And it's this powerful moment. And then he's about to be shot by the gun runners, but then part of the mud explosion saves him, and he gets up and he starts moving again, but then he just says, "Not enough time." And it's really dramatic. You normally don't see this level of intense drama. And the fact it's like on Deep Space Nine, O'Brien must suffer. That's his character arc. That's what Peter Davison's being put through right now. And Peter Davison said, if they gave me scripts like this earlier, I would have stayed longer because this is really well done.
Yeah. I was thinking as he when it comes down to it, he's willing to risk his regeneration to save his companion. And it's, from the character, would he have been thinking about Adrek? That he lost, not long ago lost a character, a companion died, and he, not again. And
when he does regenerate, he has all the faces of his companions circling around him, telling him to live, and he's got the Master's face telling him to die and laughing at him. And the last word that the Fifth Doctor says is Adrek.
Interesting. Yeah. So I wonder which was more motivation, the trying to prove the Doctor wrong or living up to what the companions were asking.
I think it was meant to be his memories of his companions was what pulled him through.
Yeah. And they brought back all of the actors for that.
Had to pay
including the voice of Chameleon. One of the companions. So anything, and then we of course we have the regeneration, where we have Colin Baker's obnoxious Sixth Doctor sit up and
change, and not a moment too soon.
Yes, and then insults Perry. The first thing he does is insult her.
Yeah, she's stuttering. She says, I, and he says, "That's three I's in one sentence. Makes you sound like a rather egotistical young woman."
Right. The pot calling the kettle black, by the way. And the first thing he'll do in the next episode is choke her, nearly kill her. Not an auspicious start for a doctor. We've talked about that several times. Anything else to say about this one, Jimmy? Any other notes?
Yeah, there's one line that Perry has where she's in Morgus's base, or his blowhole, I guess, and the military forces are overcoming the androids that Sharaz Jek has. And he says there's too many humans and they're overwhelming his android forces. And there's, when the mud explosion starts, it makes this enormous noise. And there's some effective footage there too, where the Doctor is climbing around through these tunnels and you have all this, gunk flying. It's stock footage, but it's this gunk flying horizontally across the screen to represent the mud explosion, and it's very effective. And they cut to Perry in Sharaz Jek's area, and I forget what's said to her, but she hears the noise and she's not well. But she says, "I thought it was the general bringing up his artillery," and that popped me out of the story, because wait, we haven't seen any artillery in this. Artillery, I mean, that's cannons and mortars and missile launchers. It's the big guns, and we haven't seen anything bigger than a handheld machine gun. Right. So I don't know. Maybe Perry doesn't know what artillery is, and in any event, she wasn't feeling well.
She was a little delirious, probably.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it was. All right. So that brings to a conclusion the Caves of Androzani and the Fifth Doctor, and so we'll be moving on from him.
Except for all the great Big Finish stuff he did. Peter Davison's. I think he is one of the best actors to ever portray the Doctor, and that comes out in his Big Finish work. Yeah.
So now I do want to cover our listener feedback we got on our recent discussion of that speaking of Big Finish, the Big Finish story Ghosts. That was the one with the 10th Doctor and River Song. So the first one comes from Sir Cadsalot on YouTube, who writes, I feel like this is another why doesn't somebody use this later kind of a plot. Like, why does the Doctor not use something like this to run a simulation of himself in parallel in order to solve problems in the future? It's the same problem I have with the episode School Reunion. If all you need to get a reality-bending equation is a high school full of human students with augmented intelligence, the Doctor Who universe is a big enough place that someone else would have figured it out and started bending reality there. I think it's a common sci-fi problem, which is, you
invent a magical technology, so why don't we use this for everything all the time?
Yes. Or why does it seems like an easy enough magical technology that could destroy everything, so no one else ever figured it out, that sort of thing. But it's a sci-fi problem. And then Truly Awesome New Mexico Catholic writes, thank you for another great episode. This reminded me of C.J. Cherry's Voyager in Night, that has a similar twist where you find out the main characters are actually computer replicas of the humans. In that novel, it's because the aliens couldn't find another way to save these humans, so they threw their consciousness into a computer.
Donna Noble has been saved. Donna Noble has been saved.
Exactly. It seems to me from your discussion that even if we could copy someone's thought patterns or memories into a computer, we still wouldn't be a person. It'd be like an advanced version of so-called AI today. It's a toaster that just runs programs.
Yep. Agreed.
You can't upload consciousness into a machine.
Nope.
All right, so that is it for our feedback. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback. We do love getting it. And now we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Kenneth K., Jeanette F., Benjamin C., Andrew H., and Russell Y. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. I'd love to hear what you think of the Caves of Androzani and the Fifth Doctor in general. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, and you can watch The Secrets of Doctor Who on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you can also leave a comment. And we'll be back next time when we will be discussing a Sixth Doctor Big Finish story called Catch 1782. Until then, Jimmy Aiken, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, and fandom has generally agreed that Big Finish is where the Sixth Doctor finally got his chance to shine.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.